I will say, and this is at the bottom of my email, if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life. And there are times when I'll sit there and go, why am I grading so much? But then I get in the classroom and everything changes. It's just amazing. I love what I do. And I am so proud when I watch those students walk across the stage and think, you know what? I had something to do with that success. And that to me is the greatest feeling in the world.
So Standing in the Gap is about giving back. It's about showing up for people who have no one else to show up for them. I am Dr. Tonjua Williams, president of St. Petersburg College, and you are listening to Standing in the Gap. Welcome to another episode of Standing in the Gap with Dr. Tonjua Williams, president of St. Petersburg College. Today, I have the distinguished privilege and honor to have one of our tenured professors here with us. School's starting in a couple of weeks, and I need the best of the best to tell me what we're doing and what students need to be successful. We have Professor Dawn Joyce here today. She's one of our communications professors. She's also really big in the college, does a lot of work in supporting students and others by standing in the gap. She is actually a part of our First to Finish program. She is already credentialed by AQ. She's doing a lot. And I'm going to let Dawn tell you more about that. But I think it's just so important to hear from our faculty and make sure everybody understands what they do to help students cross that stage and start the best parts of their lives. Dawn, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you for taking the time off this summer to spend here with me today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you chose to become an educator?
Absolutely. And one of my favorite memories is my 11th grade English teacher. And she told me, you know, you have something here, Dawn. You are a leader and you should think about being a teacher. And at the time I wanted to be a marine biologist. So I'm like, teacher. I fell in love with it, ended up, getting a bachelor's degree in education, and I taught high school in Sacramento, California for a few years. But what really, really did it for me was going to Palm Beach Junior College, my first year. And that was my kind of like, these people are here for me. They helped me, and it was the one-on-one instruction that I got at PB. It's now Palm Beach Community College, but it was PBJC back then.
Exactly.
And I loved it. Went on to, become an educator, and then I also knew that I wanted to come back to a community college, not necessarily a university, but I wanted the one-on-one interaction with my students. And so in 2000, I have 3 girls, and in 2005. 3 girls in daycare was going to be my entire teaching salary.
Oh my goodness.
So my husband at the time stayed home with them at night, and I was an adjunct professor at Edison State College, and that's kind of how I got my start. And then we moved to Tampa, and I fell in love with SPC and have been here ever since.
Wow. You said you taught in high school, and now you teach at the college. What's the difference in the teaching strategy between high school and college? Is there a difference?
There is a lot of gray area there, but very similar. In fact, I have quite a few dual enrolled early college students, so they are in high school. So they're getting that college experience while they're still in high school. So there's a little bit of a maturity difference, but teaching high school was just teaching high school. I didn't get to see all the different ages. I love it. I love the fact that I might have an 80-year-old in my class and a 17-year-old in my class, and learning how to tailor my teaching strategies to reach, both, the older generations and the younger generations.
It's funny you said teaching strategies. So your success rates are amazing. Your students are learning. How do you know what strategies you want to use in a classroom with students from all walks of life, different experiences, different age groups? But you're trying to get them all to the North Star to finish that class strong. What strategies are you talking about here?
I do a lot of multimedia, so I make sure that I've got the videos for those learners who are visual, and then I've got the podcast for those who are more auditory.
Wow.
And I just make sure that I'm watching the students, and if I see that they aren't necessarily getting it, I got to try a different strategy. So it's definitely not a one size fits all for, teaching. You have to be able to work with those students who may not have the same skills as another student. And then that's what kind of brought me into making sure that I worked really hard facilitating learning communities and not just putting them together as groups, but actually having, time where I would actually place people together based on personalities, based on career fields. And so that there was something that they had in common with the hope that they would bounce ideas off each other. I do have them, do projects together, but I don't just say, okay, here you go. You guys are going to do this. You four work together and then bring me the finished product. Instead, I will have them, for instance, when I do a grammar project with my Comp 1 students, and I have them assigned to a certain grammar concept, and they each have a role. So each person has a role. So they get not only a group grade, but an individual grade, and I average them together so that no one is left doing all the work, which I think is what scares people. When you say group work, they're like, I don't want to be the one that does all the work. And so, so that's why I decided to do, these different learning communities.
You said something that I want to go back to that I'm really intrigued about. It's not a one size fits all. You have a different groups. You could teach 4 classes and all of them are different students and different things. You're an interactive professor. Like you want your students to have an experience, not just sit and hear you regurgitate what's on the chalkboard or what have you, right? So how did you get to a point where you said, I want my teaching to be different. I want to make sure that I engage the whole student. How did you get to that point of knowing that this is what today's learners really needed?
It kind of started off when, and it still happens today, and I laugh at it on the first day of classes. They come into Comp 1 and they're like this. and I have to say to them, I'm not going to extract your teeth. I'm not a dentist. We will have fun in this class. And then they see the eye roll. And so I'm like, okay, I have got to do something. So one of the things I used to do, and my daughters won't let me do it anymore. They're like, no, Mom. I used to do the running man because I can't dance. I would do the running man on the first day of class. And I basically would say to them, you're either going to love me or not. So you can embrace the quirkiness. And I tell them, Friday's the last day to drop.
Yes.
But, they get it and they appreciate it for the most part. I think some are like, oh, she's a little out there as far as quirkiness, but that's how I keep their attention. I still do cahoots. Who does cahoots in college?
Who does cahoots in class?
Right? I do, because I can tell what they've gotten from the, learning, from whatever class. Yeah, from the lesson. I can tell what they've gotten, and it gets them in there. They still get excited about it. They want to be on the podium. I'm like, so I'll still do that, and I just switch it up. I watch their eyes, I watch where they're at, and then if I realize, okay, this isn't working, we switch gears and we go into doing something different that gets them back into that learning process.
And I think that's so important because, our students are all different walks of life. We don't have a selective admissions process. We don't pick the 4.0s. We get who we get and we work with who we have. And to hear how you engage students and how you're willing to flip the script if you need to, if they're not capturing the learning outcome that you're trying to do. For you in the classroom, what's the biggest aha moment that you've had that you're like, okay, you say they like cahoots.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I kind of thought that was old school, but you still like it. Are you still finding that there are some ahas that you're like, wow, they like this, they like that, and it still helps you end where you want to end, where students are learning?
I actually still see this. One of my projects in my 1102 course, my Comp 2 course, I have them do a web evaluation where I come up with current events. So whatever's going on, I think this last spring I had python invasion in Florida, all kinds of, weather. Usually what I try and do is find a category that will, speak to them, at least one. So I have 6 different categories, and I go through and find all the websites, and I find good ones and poor ones. And then based on the criteria, they have to put together a web analysis, but they also have to put together a PowerPoint. And that way I know that they're able to present, and they will present it to the class. And they get excited about it. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I want to show you my PowerPoint. It's so good. I added in this video." And that's where I let them kind of take over and, you know, some of them will come up and go, "Oh, here, guys, let me show you how to do this one. If you add in this link like this, you can add this video in." And so
they help
then I
each
take
other.
it back and I let them go. And I'm like, that's, you know, teaching, you know, themselves together is part of the fun.
You know, I'm laughing and smiling because I'm like, I'm ready to take your class myself. But some of our students are scared of Composition 1.
Terrified.
What are they afraid? Is it the writing, or what are they afraid of?
I think it's that old, you know, red ink that at least for me, when, you know, growing up, it was like, oh, there's the red pen, which I never ever use anymore. I use green.
Okay.
And I'm not sure why that color works, but something about that color, if I'm, you know, and then again, most of it's done online, but even online, the coloring that I'm using when I'm grading them is green.
It's green.
But I think what scares them is that they've, you know, if they've been told I can't write, then it just gets into their head. My thesis for my master's program, I was at an alternative high school in Sacramento, and I had to teach these students how to write, and they were not writing for me. They were like, nope. So I had to find something that got them interested. So I found that if they saw the commonalities between poetry and rap, and they started writing poetry, once they were writing, they were comfortable. They can write. I said, see, you can write. Now let's try and work on writing an essay. And so again, I just, you know, that was an aha moment when my students were like, okay, it's not that scary if, you know, if I can write a poem, right? I can write an essay. And that's kind of those baby steps that led me to, okay, I think I can do something with this here. And I still use it. I still will, you know, tell students on that first day, like, yes, writing's scary, you know, anything's scary, but you have to just embrace it and take those baby steps.
Exactly. And so as a college, knowing that many students are afraid of writing, especially your adult learners who are in their 30s and 40s, you know, we remember back in the day, you get popped on the knuckles if you don't, you know, if you don't get it right. And here we are in this class with these, you know, younger whippersnappers who are just, you know, when you look at all of that and now you engage in emerging technologies. Now you've got ChatGPT and you've got AI and you've got all this stuff, and students are possibly saying, man, look, I'm just gonna go on and do a ChatGPT for my paper and I'm moving. So where are we with embracing those emerging technologies and being able to use that as a tool or help students with what's your best guess on how to move forward with this? Because it's not going away.
No, it's not going away. It's here to stay. I think by explaining to students that, you know, things like ChatGPT can be really beneficial for making something like a resume sound more professional.
More better.
And so when you have that and you understand that, here's what I explained to my students. I said, you can write a paper with ChatGPT. You can do that. But let me ask you this. If you're in an operating room and you're about to have someone cut into you and you find out that doctor did ChatGPT or AI all the way through, are you really going to want them to cut you open? And that's an eye-opener for them. So by getting them to understand that, yes, you can do it that way. And I'm not going to be able to stop it all. I'm not going to be able to know that you used AI, but I can tell you that I wouldn't want someone who had done that operating on me.
Yeah, because it's really just a tool. And I was sharing with a team member that back in the day, if I had to do a paper on Macbeth, I would use Cliff Notes, right? Because you're like, look, I don't want to read. So I'm aging myself.
No,
you know, the little small, they were like yellow and black or whatever on the cover, but they were Cliff Notes, and they were tools to give you sort of like a summary, if you will, of the book. And you read that and, you know, you'll get some kind of concept.
Yes.
But everything, I couldn't get everything from the Cliff Notes. Like, so when you're writing a paper, you're not going to get everything from ChatGPT. There's going to be errors all the way through. But it is a tool. And how do we help our young people understand this is just a tool? It's not a catch-all for everything. And there's going to be so many other technologies that come into play as a tool. It can help you, but it's not going to get you to the finish line the way you might think.
I think it's like, okay, a pair of shoes that you're wearing. You're not going to wear the same pair of shoes to go running as you're going to wear to go, let's say, out to dinner.
Right.
And if you did, it wouldn't get you very far. So yes, ChatGPT has some great qualities, and so does AI, but it's not going to work for everything. And by understanding that there are benefits to it, and we don't want to just say, oh, no, you can't use it, because there are some great benefits to ChatGPT. But we do try and encourage them to understand that it's not something that is going to be perfect with everything you write.
Got it.
And everything, that you do in life, but that it can be helpful for certain things.
And so for the audience, I think, what the professor is saying is it can be a supplement, it can be assistance, but it won't be for every little thing in life that you're going to do. And you want to use that as a tool, not as a catch-all. So when you're working on your term papers and things of that nature, you would want to use it as a tool. Am I saying that right?
Absolutely.
As we do that. When I think about standing in the gap, you're doing a lot of other stuff here at the college as well. One that just warms my heart is the work that you're doing with other colleagues on first generation. These are the students who, they're the first in their family to ever go to college. And there's about maybe 20 professors?
Yeah, about 15 of us.
About 15 professors who came together to say, we're going to help our first generation students. We want to make sure they have access to things that they need and the help that they need to move forward. How did you get in that work, and what are you guys doing, and what exactly does it mean to you?
Well, I have to give a shout out to Dr. Amber Eslin, who put all this together and has worked tirelessly on keeping us together and helping us to be with these students. But we needed to find a way to help these first-time Titans get through that first year and not drop out. And one of the ways that we did that is by having the 15 of us, all campuses. There are some. We're on all the campuses. And our job is basically we get somewhere between 15 and 25 students who become our mentees. And what's important is that these mentees are not our own students. So, for instance, for me, I had a whole class of math students. Well, I told them very clearly, I can help you out so much with so many things. Do not ask me to help you out with math. You do not want my help in math. But it worked. And, we would email them, call them. We had field trips set up that were actually paid for by our Student Government Association, and things that we just tried to bring them together, kind of like a large learning community, so that they knew that they had each other to rely on. And, we would tell them, we don't want anything from you, because I think they would look at us like, what now? Why is SPC calling me? And we'd explain, that's not, I'm not here to tell you to do your homework.
Right.
I'm here to say, is everything going okay?
Yep.
And many times, I'll just say, I'm just your sounding board. Let me know what's going on. It can be personal. It can be academic. It can be anything. But just know that I'm here at any time you need me. And they had my cell phone number, my email, my office.
Wow.
And they would come by. And I had one student who ended up taking me as a professor in Comp 2 because he just felt comfortable with me. And another one who'd never even knew that we had study abroad at SPC. And I told her about it in the fall, and she just went to Ireland in the spring on study abroad.
We're going to come back to study abroad for sure. But I can tell you that I am extremely proud of our faculty at St. Petersburg College who decided to stand in the gap for our first-time Titans. These are students who don't have the family emotional support at home. They don't know what they don't know. And these faculty members are standing in the gap to help them. And at graduation this past May, we had about 500 graduates who were first in their family to go to college and complete. And I just want to give a shout out to our faculty for the work they have done to help those students not only come, but stay and finish. And so thank you for that. The other thing I want to say that, Professor here just said, she said, study abroad. This is where students can go to other countries and learn at the, I guess with the faculty, in that country. And these are students who she just mentioned who had never been to Ireland, maybe, I believe, never been on a plane.
Yep. I had a student
You want to tell that story? Never.
So I have a student who took me for Composition 1 and Composition 2, and he was very quiet, and it was hard to get anything out. And the next thing I know, he's like, I think I want to go to Ireland with you. I'm like, okay. And he had never been on a plane. He had to apply for a passport. He'd never left the state of Florida. And he was just blown away by the experience. And he came back and he's like, okay, where are we going next? And he was ready for his next trip abroad. And I think that's, to me, that's why study abroad is just so fantastic, to watch these students who would never think to go abroad and get these experiences and go, wow, they come back and they come back and they have such an appreciation for what they have here, but such an appreciation for what they've seen out there. And I even had a student who, I ran a program to Japan right before the pandemic, and that student is now in Japan teaching English.
That's crazy.
and that's what he does. And he just fell in love with Japan, and that's what he wanted to do, and that's where he is.
You know, a big part of your role as faculty that you probably have thought about it, but it's just really changing lives and helping people go from poverty to prosperity, and what they're learning, not just the actual lesson that you're teaching, but what they're learning about themselves. And what you just described with that young man, what you've done is turned his life around to where he's even talking more, more engaged, more interactive, you know, and you're like, wow. And I think I shared this with you earlier before we came on, that now you won't be able to get rid of him. He is your student for life.
Yes.
And I think that being a faculty member is just that critical. And so if you had a chance to share something with the audience about the value of being a faculty member, what would you say to the audience for those who are thinking of teaching in higher ed?
I will say, and this is at the bottom of my email, if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life. And there are times when I'll sit there and go, why am I grading so much? But then I get in the classroom and everything changes. It's just amazing. I love what I do. And I am so proud when I watch those students walk across the stage and think, you know what? I had something to do with that success. And that, to me, is the greatest feeling in the world.
Amen. So we're getting ready now to start a new semester, our fall term. And with the Promise Scholarship, we're going to have a lot more first-time Titans come to your classroom on the campus. Can you tell the audience from a faculty standpoint, what should students who are getting ready to start school, what should they be doing right now to prepare for class?
Well, first of all, know who your instructor is. We all have faculty pages.
That's true.
Learn about who your instructor is, what our strengths are, and then don't be afraid to reach out even before classes start. If you have a question about the syllabi, or what can I expect about this, or come to us, ask us, because as much as I think I am a mind reader, I'm not. But we really do want students to come to us. And that's a big part of my job, is having students feel comfortable enough to come talk to us. So talk to your professors, make sure that you have everything you need on that first day. Make sure you know where your classes are. Maybe it's not a bad idea to take a little walk around campus and say, okay, that's where it is.
Good advice.
It's one of those things where if you come in and you're like, I'm so flustered, it doesn't make for that first day. But if you've okay, I know where my class is. Mm-hmm. I know what to expect from the professor. I've already reached out to the professor. And that's, I think, the best advice I can give as you're getting ready to start.
So we have so many different modalities. So we just talked about the on-campus student. What about the online student?
So with the online students, it's extremely important that I get to know them, just the same as in a face-to-face classroom. Mm-hmm. So when I have them do one of the icebreakers in the beginning of class, I make sure that I ask them to do either a video or an audio. Okay. And not all of them have access to that, and that's okay. But when they do, I can kind of get a look into who they are and what they might need. And I ask them, why are you taking this course? Most of them will say required, and that's fine. And I tell them that. I'm like, yes.
Composition is required.
It's required. But is there anything else that you're hoping to get out of this class? And that's a way to kind of get the online community going. And then they also have discussion posts where they have to reply to each other about certain things. And I'll even say, For instance, in poetry, the students are always scared of poetry. Not all, but many. And I'm like, what is it that's scaring you about poetry? Why is it scary? And they talked among one another. They don't have to say it to me, but they can talk to each other and say, well, I think poetry is scary because I don't understand it. Okay, fair enough. And so that's kind of the way to keep them communicating with each other and with me. And then I do weekly videos for them so that they know exactly what to expect that week, and they see me, because I think it's important for them to see my face and know that I'm a real person. And, I'm telling them, okay, this week, this is what we have going on. Let me know if you have any questions, concerns.
Move forward. When we talk about modalities, I am not an online learner. I am a sit in the classroom type learner. Many of our students think they're all online, that they can really do the work. For those who are interested in taking online classes, what would you say as a faculty member to prepare them for online? Like, online is different than face-to-face, and I'm speaking solely online, not where you
not
have
blended,
right, not a blended. So have you had students in your class that you're like, they're really not ready for online? And what would make a student not prepare for true online instruction?
To be an online student, you have to have some self-discipline, because there is a little bit of having to work at your own pace. Whereas if you're in the classroom, I can kind of go, okay, hold on, we're not all getting this, and I can go back. So as an online student, it's important that you do understand the material, and if this is a good point, making sure that you're going from top to bottom. I have many times online students who just want to come in and do the work and be done with it, but they're not doing it correctly because they're not going through the material, or they're not watching the video where I explain in detail. So it's really important that you do take the time to go through the course material and not just rush into the drop boxes and say, okay, check that off.
I like that. I know as president, we do have some students who start off in online classes and realize this is not good for me. Can I switch to, a face-to-face? And we don't want to lose them, but for those in the audience who are thinking about higher education, whether it's a certificate or a degree, please make sure you look at the modality and make sure that that will work for you and that you have all of the tools you need to be prepared. So if you're going to have an online class, you need to make sure you have all of the computer equipment, the Wi-Fi, the right drives, whatever drives the institutions are using, so that you can be prepared. And you've got to set your clocks and set your time right to do the online work. It's not,
absolutely.
It all catches up with you before you know it. Am I right?
Yes. And then at the end, students are like, I'm a little behind. I'm like, well. So there is discipline involved in it, and that's key. And again, reaching out to your professor saying, I don't understand this. Yep. Point in case, I'm at the end of summer.
Yep.
So I've got 2 classes going right now, and they're both online. And I did, 4 Zooms last week because students just weren't understanding it. But by doing a Zoom, they don't have to come into my office, but I can still show them the course material. And it's amazing how just even a 20-minute Zoom call made all the difference in them understanding the material and how to navigate the course. I mean, it's a different animal, especially if you haven't used our learning management system.
It is a different animal. I want to go back. I forgot to ask one question about study abroad. Are there scholarships, do you know, for study abroad
100%.
For those who might not be able to go? I think that being able to visit another country and learn there is amazing, and learning their cultures and different things of that nature, that there are scholarships. And then for 2025, do we have any new ones coming up?
We have the Study Abroad Scholarship, which I believe is $1,500.
Okay.
And then there's also the Foundation Scholarship. And those are the 2 that we really promote in Study Abroad. And we have a great Study Abroad team who will walk you through it and encourage you to apply for scholarships. And so you could, our programs are usually about 4,000 and under. And so you can get almost half your program paid for. And students don't know about it. And they, you're not going to get 2 scholarships. In other words, you're not going to get the foundation and the study abroad.
Right.
But many students get at least 1. And it just makes such a difference to be able to go out there and to see the world. And in 2025 in May, I'm leading Morocco. We're going to Morocco.
Very nice.
So it's one of those where you would take, either a World Lit 1 or 2 course with me, and then we go to Morocco for 10 days, including a camel ride. So there's not, if Morocco's not your cup of tea, there are so many other programs that are going and building. And so look on the Study Abroad website and see what, might get your fancy.
So as a professor, you have to keep up with all the latest techniques and different scholarly research, and you're also a researcher, and you've written peer-reviewed articles and things of that nature. What do you do to just stay on top of your game? Like, how do you keep the juices flowing and continuing to bring those high impact practices into the classroom?
A lot of it is professional development and finding those, those conferences, and it could be virtual, but being able to look and say, okay, what worked for you guys? Because that's not working for me. And it's that whole working with other universities, other colleges, other colleagues, and that's kind of how I stay on top of things. And oh, look at what they're using. I wonder what that is. How do I do that in my classroom?
I think that's amazing, because you're saying as a professor, I stay on top of my game. I read, I go to conferences to make sure that I'm bringing the best to the table when it's time. And your students show that, the completion rates and what they're doing. I think it's just critical. So here's one. Looking ahead, what are some of your other aspirations that you might have in your career, in your life, and what you want to get finished, to say, look, before it's over, I just want to have done this, this, and this? What would that be?
I would say that I want to make sure that I continue keeping those students in the classroom, in college, not letting them fall through the cracks. And that is, I don't know if you know this, but it's devastating for a professor if we don't know why that student left.
Wow.
And because we don't know, are they okay? We feel for our students. We want what's best for them. And so for me, it's always, how can I just make sure that I keep that student? So that's always a goal of mine. And online classes in particular can be really tough because they just are gone. We just don't know where they went. And so being able to try and keep them together, and that's again why I have the learning communities, is to help them find something common with a group of people who will hopefully keep them from falling through the cracks. And then of course, technology is always changing. It's always embracing. I'm currently working on the Canvas Certified Educator course.
Okay.
So it's been huge, the things that I'm learning through this, because I'm like, wow. And that's just because technology has changed so much. I mean, I'm learning more, which means I'm able to give more to my students by learning those different skills.
And Canvas is our new student learning system that we are migrating to. Our faculty are always looking for best practices and high impact practices and new tools. And I believe this is the tool that they wanted as a whole. I'm sure it wasn't 100%, to move forward with our students to make sure that the learning management system is top notch. And I think the other piece is, hearing the voice of faculty and moving forward is something that we're working on at the college, and making sure that we do hear your voice and what that looks like in moving forward. So if you were president for a day
of the college,
president of the college, what would be your priority today? Knowing what you know, and I'm talking about, you're the president of St. Petersburg College in St. Petersburg, Florida, in Pinellas County.
Wow. Well, first of all, those are big shoes to fill. So that would be the challenge right there. But just being able to find a way to make sure that students and faculty are working together, administration, students, faculty, the whole gamut, and that we're all working, because really the common good is to get that student across the stage.
That's the good.
Yeah, that's kind of the end goal. And if we can do that, then I think, your job. We
got it.
Yeah, you've done your job.
We've done the job.
I would just say that for faculty who are coming in and who are new to our field, you just got to have that passion. You've got to know you're going to lose some, you're going to win some, you're going to have some that just disappear. And just being able to embrace it and know that as long as you go in there and you do your best and you enjoy it, then, again, I don't feel like I am working when I go to school and when I go teach. I feel like I have the best job because I get to talk to these students and I get to help, basically, help the new, what am I looking for? help
the new students coming in to, and to the students out there in the audience. First of all, if you're preparing to be a Titan, welcome aboard. We're glad you're here. We value you and we look forward to helping you achieve your goal. If you are in the audience and you're not a Titan, online, face-to-face, blended, best faculty in the land, excellent student support services, you can't go wrong. And so we hope that we can see you at SPC in a couple of weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the best professors in the land, Professor Dawn Joyce, who has been here standing in the gap in many ways, more than in her classroom, helping our first-time Titans get across the stage, improving retention and keeping students coming back semester after semester. We just want to thank Dawn for being here today and for sharing with us. Let's go Titans.
Thank you so much for letting me be here. I'm honored.